Yeah,
So
for
it was
sure.
drug
Yeah.
and sex fueled music scene
Mhm.
injected into a dispirited, disillusioned West. And that's one of the reasons why it was elevated. And so that, though the music art form at the beginning was brilliant, and I agree with you that like Coltrane and Chet Baker and all they're all incredible.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look at what has happened to jazz now, it is not what it was at all.
Yeah.
But in the very beginning, the transition from pieces that were performed by orchestras that required massive amounts of skill and training for dozens of people to perform and coordination became about one guy standing up there just improvising,
Mhm.
completely different in nightclubs, in dark nightclubs, not concert halls, with
Yeah.
drugs and alcohol, right, and sexuality,
Mhm.
not education, let's say. And so
Yeah.
it was a completely alien art form that came into the West and took root and started spreading. That doesn't invalidate the art form itself, but it's to
Mhm.
say it's a foreign form of art. I'll
Mhm.
probably lose my entire podcast for saying those things, but
Well, I think you said it well. I mean, it's funny. So, isn't that the period after World War One? Isn't that the Reconstruction at that point?
uh, excuse me. Civil War Reconstruction was after
So,
Civil War. I think that was like 1860s or something. After World War One was the Roaring Twenties,
yeah.
and then the Great Depression was in the 30s.
Got it. I can't really argue with that. I mean, that sounds right. I mean, and it probably tracks more than what I'm trying to say. And
Mm.
in some ways, like it would pain me to agree that it was destructive because it's me, right? It's what we brought over.
Sure. Well, I mean,
And
like, it wasn't you, like, any more
yeah,
than, I don't know that it's you any more than, like, yeah, I come from a Jewish background, but, like, doesn't make it me. But I get what you mean. There's is collective guilt a thing? I don't know. I mean, like,
well,
assuming I'm not trying to guilt you, by the way. I'm just putting the idea out
no,
there.
no, no. I think that when I say it's me, I mean more along the lines of like it is a part of it's a part of my heritage,
I
right?
see.
And I love jazz. I grew up on jazz,
Hmm.
so it'll be a challenge for me to see it in that light. But I mean, like as with anything that humans create, it has the ability to do damage, right?
Hmm.
In the same way that what we just talked about before with Western ideologies, like if you don't have Christ at the center of that,
Yes.
it's materialism.
Yes.
It's just Rome before Rome fell, right?
Hmm.
Like, and I guess because Constantine happened after the fall of Rome, right? Or was that right before?
That was before. My understanding of Constantine is that he was looking for a way. I don't know. I need to read. I haven't read this part of church history. The whole thing is he saw a vision of a cross in the sky and with the message, by this sign you will conquer. And so that's why he became Christian, allegedly. I don't know. That's the story that I've heard, but that also politically back in Rome, the Rome was being torn apart by its own multiculturalism. And so
Yeah,
Christianity had a unifying force for him to assert power, right? So to what extent that's true, I don't know.
this is a really interesting point. So, okay, you have Rome. This is good to paint out. You have Rome that's multicultural. You got America that's multicultural. Okay. You got a guy that says, let's Christianize this area, unify on that front. And it sounds like that's what we're trying to do in some sense now collectively.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Possibly.
that just so then is a nation that Christianizes just a nation that is on its way out? Like is that just an inevitability in some way? You know?
I think the question that if I were to answer it for like a Doug Wilson, kind of Wilsonian answer. I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Wilsonian. This is good.
Yeah.
That's a good. Can you hashtag that Wilsonian?
Wilsonian. Yes, I can. So I think when Rome fell, there weren't, I don't know how many alternatives there were, like knocking on the doors, right? Like it was a very different world. Now, if America falls, there's far worse alternative wolves that are just perched right offshore, essentially.
Mhm.
And so the Christianization of America, like the stakes of America falling versus the stakes of Rome falling, are very, very different in terms of their global implications. Because
Yeah.
when Rome fell, South America was fine. They didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
But if America falls, like some form of tyranny, probably communism, whether it be of the Chinese variety or the World Economic Forum variety or whatever, will spread across the world. It seems almost inescapable. And so the Christianization of America is not an attempt to shore up. Actually, Doug Wilson gets into this at the end of Mere Christendom. It's not an attempt to shore up an existing regime. It's an attempt to replace the existing regime with a Christendom 2.0. It's not to let's reestablish the post-war liberal order supported by Christianity. It's like, no, this is okay. Here we go. This is a better way to think of it. If America is going to fall, if it's going to crack up and fall, which a lot of people seem to think that it will, and you and I talked about that, who's gonna conquer the land that's left? Is it going to be the Russians? Is it going to be the Chinese, World Economic Forum, or is it going to be the Christians? And that's the question that Mere Christendom and Christian nationalism are trying to answer. If America is going to fall, the Christians should be the ones that conquer this land. I think that's probably the idea. To speak in, I don't, again, not to put words in anyone's mouth, but that would be, I think, a Wilsonian way of thinking about it. And hopefully that's not meant to be offensive or caricature. It's like, this is happening, and what are we as Christians going to do about it? Right? We're not going to become American Christianists, you know, right?
Understand. Yeah. Understand your point. And I think we were talking about this before off air. I don't know. I like the vision because it is a positive one.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I just don't know that Christianity as a religion is congruent with political power.
That's the big debate.
That's the big debate. There's another book written by one of the guys on the theology podcast that he put forth called Slaying Leviathan, and it's H for Christian Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Glenn Sunshine.
Glenn Sunshine, yeah, good guy. It's one that it's thought provoking, but I just like if you're looking at the personhood of Christ, you don't see political conquest. You see, in fact, political subjugation, like willingly going to the cross, right?
Sure.
And then you read, I'm sending you out as sheep amongst wolves, therefore be as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves, and flee if they're coming to persecute you, Jesus actually says flee the town, right? You don't need to do needless persecution, right? If you can get out of it, get out of it. If you can't get out of it, then accept it, take it on the chin, like
That's important.
Man or woman, and so, but even with that admonishment from Christ, there's no sense in which we're to siege the throne. I don't see that anywhere. And I haven't read Doug Wilson's book. It's probably one that I should read, but I've not
really good.
But I don't see a way that we get involved from a political power standpoint. And maybe that's not his point. Maybe his point is more so, and it sounds like that's what it was, is maybe his point is more so along the lines of we just become influential in our local communities. Maybe that's more of what he's talking about.